On the new depth chart, Nick Harwell is the punt returner.
Well, I mean, I've done a lot of things on here in the last 48 hours, but there's a lot of things that have been changed on special teams in the last 24. Okay, God bless you. So that's one of the things that's been changed. There's a lot of things that have been changed.
The big plays on defense that you gave up, you mentioned gaps. And is that just mental errors or one guy missing an assignment? And what did you see when you looked at the film?
Well, let's talk about the four big runs, the four big runs. And the four big runs, two of them, we had a guy for every gap. They were the hit versus blitz zones. So the line's slanting a certain way. So there's a guy there in position to make a play, and we don't touch him. Okay, on two of them. On one of them, there was a player standing there, unblocked, untouched, and didn't even touch the guy. Okay. And I don't know why. He just froze. He looked like he just froze. Okay. And then another one was the run was kind of clogged up there, and he bounced it out. It was the one up the right side, the back-to-back, the 30-yarder and 40-yarder. When he bounced it out to the right side, that was a bounce-out run that sometimes happens in the game. So the bounce-out run that sometimes happens in the game, I have less of a problem with than the other three when you have a guy in a gap on two of them. Okay, and guys just overrun the play. And the other one, when you have a guy standing right there, no one blocking you, you have to make the play. So, they're all a little bit different. None of them are acceptable, except the only one I can really kind of excuse is the bounce out. Everything's clogged up, nothing's there, you bounce it out. Now, now you're running up the sideline.
Referencing what you addressed earlier about a handful of guys playing pretty good games, was Michael Reynolds one of those? It seemed like he really got after the first half.
No, I would not put him in that class of that group of people who played really well.
Throughout?
I think when Michael Reynolds was rushing the passer, he looked good.
Okay.
And when he wasn't, he didn't look very good. You're not going to get me to say yay on very many of the players that you could bring up right now. I mean, take your pick. There aren't going to be very many of them that I'm going to say, yeah, they played well.
You mentioned Victor Simmons, though. He's a guy who had pretty good numbers last year, and we didn't talk about him much in the preseason. What do you like about him?
Here's a guy who played all out the entire game. Didn't make any mistakes. Made a few plays. Okay, but you can tell the guys that made some plays, were in the right spot, didn't give up any plays. He stood out. I mean, when you watch the tape, you could sit there. He's in the right place, and he's making plays when plays are going his way, and when they're not, he's not giving up anything cheap. Okay, and that's when you know you did your job. There's some days you'll get more production than the others, but when you do your job and don't give up any plays, that usually means you played pretty well, and he did. He played. I called him out in the meeting. He was one of the first people I called out because it's not the normal type of person. Ben Heaney's easy. You go make your 15 tackles and you give up a play in a passing game, but other than that, you're sideline to sideline. You're not missing any gaps. You're in the gaps you're supposed to be. You're playing hard the whole time. And he gets banged up. He comes off the sideline. He could have stayed out if he wanted to. He couldn't get back out there fast enough. I mean, that's why Ben Heaney is who he is. But Victor Simmons, I thought I was impressed. I thought he played very well. I mean, we're not mentioning the running backs. I thought the running backs ran the ball really well again. I think that both those guys have showed that they're going to run tough, and not every yard was easy, but they ran tough in the game. So it gives you, hey, we've been there before now. We all know. I'm not going to give you illusions of grandeur. we can run the football. If you can't throw it, you can't score a point, you're not going to win. And the players and the coaches all understand that very clearly.
This may be a kind of a simple, dumb question.
Go ahead.
You've had different
Dumb
running
is
backs.
right up my alley.
For 3 years, you've had different running backs, you've had different offensive linemen, you've always been able to run the ball. You've had different quarterbacks, different receivers, and not been able to do it. Is there a common theme on what's wrong with the pass?
Well, I'd say this is where we play 2 games, and let's wait a while before we come to that answer. That's what I think. Let's wait a while, because right now it would be unfair to me to give an answer because there's not enough evidence to be able to back that right now. I just don't have a good enough answer yet.
What was the Duke defense doing that really shut down Harlow?
Montel shut down Harwell. Duke's defense didn't shut down Harwell.
You mentioned after the game that this week, and you said respectfully, obviously, that you're not trying to disrespect an opponent, but it's all about you guys this week.
I agree.
Will the biggest key for your team against this style of team be matching their physicality then?
Well, put it like this, they already know what's coming today.
Okay.
I mean, they know what's coming today.
What is?
You won't have to worry about whether or not today will be a physical practice. And you'll have Reagan and Bowen right in the middle of it. Okay. As a matter of fact, Reagan today, is doing something different than he normally does. Normally he just, gives the play to the signal caller and it goes from there. Today he has Ron doing that, giving the plays to the signal callers, because he's going to be right in the middle of everything, all over him. This is the type of practice I'm really looking forward to.
Hey, Charlie, you talked about Victor playing so well when he was playing all out, turned up, and we saw how well your team played in the first quarter with emotion against Southeast Missouri. Is that a big key for you guys? Is just playing with that emotion in a home game coming up this week?
No, each player. I mean, there's plenty of guys who played with emotion the entire game. There's plenty of them. Okay, the problem is some guys handle negative plays. They don't have short-term memory, so they harp in the past instead of the play's gone. I mean, I don't know how many times. Okay, the series is over. Let's go. Let's go. You have to play the next play, and I think that when players are thinking more about what happened than what's going to happen, that's not a good thing. So that's been the biggest point of emphasis here in the last 48 hours. Let it go. I mean, you got to let it go. If you give up a play, let it go. What you can't do, I mean, you look at the first series. I mean, we had 3 bad plays in a row now. Okay, you only noticed the first one, but all 3 of those plays there was a problem on, and the problem wasn't all 11 guys. The problem really started between the quarterback and the center. Okay, and before you know it, you're punting, and you never even gave your team a chance. So put it like this: I'm glad there's lights out there, because when the practice is over, the quarterback and center are going to hang out together for quite some time. I don't know what time tutoring starts, but, hopefully they'll be in time for tutoring. We can't be out there because that would exceed the 4-hour day.
Charlie, you've obviously really trying to help out a lot of young quarterbacks. I guess maybe particularly with Montel, what is the usual progression as far as a younger guy? You're making the decision of where to get the football, how quickly to get rid of it, and really identify if a guy like Nick or Tony is open.
Well, it's not a question of whether they were open. He's now seen them open. I mean, you were at the game. You saw him roll out twice, and Tony standing there in the flat without anyone within 15 yards of him. I mean, Tony can't get any more open than that. I mean, so the key is throw it to him. So, I can do some things. For example, when you roll out of the pocket, normally people read things top down. Why? Because you have more time. Well, then maybe this week, instead of reading them top down, maybe they're going to read them bottom up. So if somebody's there right now, go ahead and give it to them. I mean, there's a perfect example of on the exact same play. You would think if there's clutter down the field, you're looking in the flat, go ahead and throw it to them. But the question about shutting down Tony and Nick, it wasn't it wasn't like Tony and Nick didn't have opportunities to make plays. They did.
How big is this one? I mean, you made no secret about how big Duke was.
I think that everyone knows that this is a critical game because now you go into the Big 12 stretch that we're about ready to go into, and I'm not even worrying about any of those games right now. I think this kind of sets the table. Sets the table either way. Either sets the table well or it doesn't. Sets the table where you're really, really fighting. Fighting to an uphill battle. And either way, you're going to be fighting. I mean, it's a tough league. You're going to be fighting every week. But I think that if you go out there and play really well against a good physical team, and win the game, I think that you'll be really encouraged going into the next one.
John, when players are having a tough time, I assume they would come to you and express those feelings. For a coach, when there's tough times, where do you go? Who do you talk to? Do you
Me
talk to
personally?
anybody? Yeah.
My job is to get everyone else. The head coach doesn't have that release. Okay, but I have to be there not just for the players now. You do that for the coaches too. Believe it or not. I know that you guys don't think that that coaches are people and stuff like that, but you have to worry about their psyches too. So, I think that's what I do on Saturday night. I figure out on Saturday night what I'm going to say on Sunday morning. So some of the damage control you've already done on a plane, as much as you could do. Okay, but once you get back and you've watched the game, you get back, it's 11:15, sit down there, sit in the chair, and get the clicker in your hand, and go watch the offense and the defense and the special teams. Now it's 2:00, and you have a much better idea of questions that some of you asked after the game. Now they've been what you thought has either been verified or it didn't exactly happen the way you thought it happened. But I know one thing, by that time you already can now get a mindset on how to address the problems. One of the things you have to do is you have to beat them down and tear them up. You have to beat them down and build them up all on the same day. And if you think that they come in and I say that's okay, then you don't know me very well. Because I don't do that. I think it's important for everyone to know, here's what the problems were. Okay, and these problems are caused by you. And then go about how to fix them. And that's true with coaches too, just so you know. I do the same thing with them than I do with the players. Because there's things they'll say, well, why'd we call this? Or what were we doing here? Or, what was your guy doing on this play? Because whether it's a position coach or a play caller, there's always issues that come up, But really, I think by the time 6:30 or so, Sunday night hit here, when these guys were leaving the building, I think that they were on to Central Michigan.
First play of the game, it looked like Montel was surprised that the ball was snapped. Was that a miscommunication?
No, on that play, on the second play, that happened. Okay. On the first play, the ball hit him in the hands, but at the snap was 100 miles an hour. So this wasn't, on the first play, it wasn't him snapping it early, and it wasn't ball placement. It was, a speed ball. which really caught him off guard. Like, he got his hands on the ball, it hit him in the hands and then went over his shoulder. But, those are the type of things that, it isn't where the snap, location of the snap was on that play. It was the speed of the snap. So sometimes it's the location of the snap. Okay, sometimes it's the speed of the snap. Okay, sometimes it's not being on the same page exactly when that's going to occur. So they're really, like, it's a good question, because there's about 3 different issues that took place on that play. The ball was right here, but it was coming so hard. Sometimes, like in baseball, you say it's too hot to handle. It was like one of those ones where the ball was coming back so fast, it surprised him. And it was hot. You'd like for him to catch it, but it was hot.
Center 2 motion.
Well, I don't know. He had a bunch of family there. That could have been it. I don't know, but that doesn't explain the second one or the third one or the other ones that we were dealing with right there. But we're working on it. It's not that, I promise you one thing, it's not because either one of those guys doesn't care, because they do. They want to be good. They want to fix the problems.
You already mentioned Avery, but first road game for a bunch of your freshmen, and obviously a lot of them got out there too. Just the whole experience, what do you think of how those guys handled road trip?
Well, Avery doesn't act like a freshman, so it's tough for me to look at him like a freshman. I think there's different guys you look at different ways. There's a couple guys that looked like they were more looking at the opposing the stadium, and really it wasn't a very intimidating place. Now there's about 25,000 people there. They're far away from you. It wasn't loud. So there really was nothing to be intimidated about. You're playing against a nice, solid team. They're not great, but they're a nice, solid team that's, turned a corner and they're winning. So you're going to have to play well. So really there should have been, field was in great condition. Weather didn't turn out to be an issue, but, there really, you could look for reasons. There really isn't one. We've gone to places where a freshman walks in and said, my God. You walk in and there's, 88,000 people there or 100,000 people there. And, some of them get overwhelmed. But in that game, that should not have been the case.
But it was for a couple guys.
I'd say a few guys that it was a little bit much for. But Avery, he certainly wasn't one of them. See, the thing about that game, you go into the game, my biggest concerns in the game, my 2 biggest concerns on defense were their passing game and quarterback runs, because I thought we'd be vulnerable. Quarterback didn't run the ball one time, and the passing game was basically no big deal. They hit McCaffrey down the middle of the field versus Tampa, okay, and on a pick play, he gets open on the 5, Cassius misses it, hits him. If he tackles him, they're kicking a field goal, misses the tackle, they score. Other than that, they're a good guy. Number 3, 2 catches for 14 yards. Blakeney, 5 catches for 45 yards. So my 2 biggest concerns, we should pretty well shut down. I wasn't counting on big plays in the run game. I wasn't counting on our pass game being inefficient. I wasn't counting on not being able to score. Those are the things that, ultimately, those are the things that end up getting you. Bad turnovers. But even the turnovers just led to 6 points. The defense D'd up on both turnovers and held them to 3 both times. So it wasn't like they were 14 points. They were, the defense held them in both times. Go ahead, what was your question?
Harwell's had past experience against Central Michigan. He's had success as well. Is he excited to play against Central Michigan again?
Right now, don't care what Harwell's excited about. What I care about with Harwell is that he's the leader of our offense, and he gets all over him so that today we have a good practice. You know, he's had big numbers against this team in the past. He's had good days, but that's the past. I'm only worried about today's practice leading into Saturday's game.
You talked a little bit about Kozar struggling in the pocket last week. And we keep going back with Kozar. Sorry about that, but is that something
Actually, I was looking to wrap this up. That's what I was doing, but I promise you I will answer your question. Go ahead.
Is that something that you will also focus on this week during practice? Is accuracy as well as the snap and pocket presence as well as accuracy and snap?
That's right, because pocket presence is a different deal, and I agree with you that I think that was also an issue in the game. But pocket presence will definitely be addressed. Not will be addressed, you know, it's already has been addressed and will be addressed on the field here today.